Thanks for joining me this week on the show. This time around, just a little intimate conversation between you and me. As I am preparing to head off on some travel, I'm exploring the gifts of travel, and I'm hoping to spark your curiosity so that you might indulge in a little bit of the same, whether a long trip, an extended weekend, or simply a one-day getaway. Join me and explore what you can take away from embracing the unexpected. It's time to flip the script on stress and learn how to thrive today and throughout your days. Join me for inspiration and interviews with folks who are shining their light in the world in the areas of positive mindset, health, and well-being. I'm your host, Susi Vine. Let's get happified. Welcome back. I am so happy to have you with me this week for a little conversation. I'm recording earlier than usual. I don't know if you know what things look like behind the scenes here at 3X HQ, but I have to admit I'm a bit of a last minute girl, and often I am recording my podcast or editing my interviews right before they go live every other Thursday. And this time I am recording a solo conversation with you, dear listener, before I head to Europe on a little vacation. So today I wanted to talk about travel and that spirit of adventure and why I think it is such a beautiful antidote to stress, particularly the kind of chronic stress that so many of us are navigating in today's mad, 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 mad world. So welcome back, or thank you for joining me if this is your first visit to Happified. I'm thrilled to have you with me, and as always, you can find more information and a lot more episodes, which you can search by keyword or category at my website, happifiedlife.com. So, thanks for coming back with me. And today I want to dig in. So, even if you're a little limited on your paid time off, or you just have trouble giving yourself permission to take some days away from work, from your regular schedule, whatever it is that has got you feeling committed, obligated to showing up for someone else, maybe this conversation will inspire you to look for ways to show up for yourself in a way that is completely different, something new and novel that I'm sure, speaking from experience, will fill your cup in a way that really not anything else does. So thank you once again for joining me today. What I'd like to share with you first is a thought that sometimes we travel to escape life. If you think about that dream vacation that is advertised in the pages of glossy magazines, if you even still get those, it might be a yacht. It might be an all-inclusive retreat. And if that's your jam, if that's your picture of restoration, then no shame. You do you, boo. But I hope you're planning to do it and not just living in the pages of glossy print and fantasies. Sometimes we do travel to escape life, but often the most meaningful journeys help us return to ourselves. So whether your idea of a picture-perfect vacation is sitting on a chaise lounge, rooted in the sand with the waves lapping on the shore and someone bringing you a frosty beverage, or going completely off-grid, unplugged in a cabin on a lake where no one can find you and nothing can bother you, whether you want the full five-star experience or if you want the rustic, solitary, peaceful retreat, I think that the greatest takeaway that we can bring home with us is that clarity, that peace of mind that comes from stepping out of our regular schedule, our pre-committed commitments, those agreements that we have made over time through the years, just through these months and through this wild year that we've all been through. So when we give ourselves permission to step away from those responsibilities, those commitments, that overstimulation and noise, then we have that opportunity to plug into just how healing it can be to enjoy space, to let what sparks you be what moves you instead of following the shoulds and the to-do list and acting out of habit. So I myself am really looking forward to a completely new adventure. To me, I was recruited by a good friend and happy to tag along on a trip to walk a short portion, by no means a whole route, but a short portion of the Camino Portugués and the Camino de Santiago. So I will be traveling from the border of Portugal to Santiago de Compostela on foot, merely 100 kilometers over the very peaceful route of 1 week, so plenty of time to take in the sights, to stop, enjoy some cafes. We're not going the traditional pilgrim route and finding our lodgings daily as we go along the route in albergues. We are champagne pilgrims, I've heard us called, where we have the lodgings already booked and we're planning to have luggage transported. So if that's not your idea of a pilgrimage, I wholeheartedly support and would love to cheer you on if you do the traditional pilgrim's route, planning not to plan, walking and taking the entire experience as it goes and giving yourself that space to truly connect with yourself, what you're available for, and expanding those horizons. I'm super proud of all those who travel that way. I am, as many of us Americans do, fitting this into a very short span of time. And so we're making the most of it. We have a bit of a precision strike with a couple of days buffer on both sides for me to enjoy a little bit of Portugal outside of our walk in Spain. And what I'm most looking forward to is this opportunity to simply be, to let my senses be my guide. Of course, we have a map, we have our intentions. All of that is wonderful. And I'm looking forward to reveling in space, to being disconnected from the computer. I'm taking an iPad just to check email. And even that, I'm making no guarantees about how consistent that will be, so that I can tune into what lights me up. Now, you might have guessed I'm a person who indulges in that quite a lot. If something does not light me up, I really have trouble coming back to it. And that is through a lot of blessings and grace, been a way that I've been able to shape my life. And I am eternally grateful that I have that freedom through working in massage therapy and spas, and now in a place that supports flexibility and travel. What a gift. And being able to work remotely with some of my clients so that I can stay connected no matter where I am in the world. And so when I'm able to drop into that, when I'm able to remove myself from the daily life and put myself over here in a new place without expectations, with a little bit of a language barrier that starts to question these assumptions that we have when we assume that what we say is clear, that when we speak, we are understood. Put myself into a place where listening is so important, where reading physical cues as well as auditory cues is essential, where being willing to admit my mistakes, to leading with gratitude. These are ways that you can really find a deeper connection with people than I think many, many of us ever recognize that we start to lose that connection with in the course of our daily lives. So, as we say, the gift is being in the present, and I am looking forward to unwrapping that over the couple of weeks ahead. You might connect to this pattern that we have in the course of our daily lives. We tend to move fast as possible, and often we start to become unconscious in these rhythms, these routines, because our brain is a hungry, hungry animal. It takes up a lot of energy. And so the more it can put on patterns and habits, the easier it is for our brain to hum along, to keep on chugging, to take in new input because it isn't working so hard to manage the stuff of daily life. And that's reasonable. That's fine. We are fundamentally biological beings. And it has been proven in research in the field of positive psychology that when we have moments of awe and wonder, when we experience feelings like curiosity and we learn new and novel things, this actually has the experience of stretching time. So if you're feeling like days are slipping one into the other, like there's not much difference, the weeks are flying by, we don't know how we've gotten here so fast, I propose that opportunities like travel, perhaps a daycation, a little even partial day retreat, getting out into nature and taking a walk for a couple of hours to really immerse yourself in the experience and your senses. These invitations create an opportunity for you to expand time because in that frame of mind, in that perspective of awe and wonder, this is where these new and novel memories begin to be formed and created. And these are the bookmarks that give definition and shape to our days. So if you're looking for a remedy of those calendar days flying past without seeming to notice, I propose even a mini-cation, a staycation, something to take you out of your normal schedule could be a powerful antidote. Because when you're traveling, when you take yourself on a walk that's a different direction than you usually do, when you put yourself in any completely new experience, it forces you to be present. In the course of our daily lives, we have to work to bring in mindfulness. We have to bring ourselves into that practice of being present because so much is habit and repetition. However, when you're out of your normal environment, you find yourself reading signs, not only in the print, but looking around, reading the energy, the people in the neighborhoods where you are, what your expectations are, checking those, being open to new input. You start listening more carefully, looking around you with more detail instead of taking in broad strokes, as I confess I want to do when I'm in a hurry. And you start reconnecting with your muscle of adaptation. A lot of us struggle with change because we do love a pattern. We do love to settle into a habit. And welcoming that gift of adaptation, embracing change and the unknown gives us that strength of resilience and flexibility and reminds us how capable we are. It can restore your self-esteem and your confidence in meeting any challenge that life serves up. So, as I've talked about many times before, stress has healthy benefits. That healthy stress, called eustress, helps us to respond to uncertainty, to recognize challenge, and to rise and overcome it, and to move through unfamiliarity with, as I was just saying, that confidence that we are going to be able to meet these unexpected demands or challenges or face fear and move through it and come out the other side more capable and more prepared for whatever life might have in store next. As I mentioned recently in one of my personal conversations with you, talking about the gifts that we can find in dysregulation. If you see me on social media, I love to share tools to help you break the cycle of stress, to come into recovery and break out of the pattern of chronic stress. And that power of recovery, that resilience is what is really beautiful, what is such a gift. Because when we come from being dysregulated into regulation, when we stop being afraid or overwhelmed as soon as we recognize we're feeling dysregulated, if we don't let that shut us down, and instead we look for that opportunity to call on our tools, we understand how to resource and restore ourselves, then we become more adaptable and we feel more alive. The Camino de Santiago is a route that pilgrims have walked since the Middle Ages. People have walked this route to Santiago de Compostela, the town in which it is believed the remains of St. James have been interred in the cathedral there that pilgrims are walking toward. I won't say that I'm walking myself for specifically religious reasons. I consider myself more spiritual than subscribing to any specific religious doctrine. However, nature is my muse and connection with my friends. I have one friend that I know on this journey and two that I will know much better one week in, and the other pilgrims along the way. That connection, human to human, soul to soul, looking at each other in the eyes and seeing where we've come from, recognizing the insights and the experiences that a day has served up. It's such a powerful point of connection. The Camino invites you to slow down. It invites you to honor and welcome simplicity, to surrender to what is unknown and trust that your needs will be met, and to connect with other people's in their journey, to respect where they are, to respect the desire for solitude, and to celebrate that desire to come together and share in emotions together. And really, truly, to trust in yourself, to trust in the experience, in your tools, in the capacity for the universe to bring you what you need when you need it. I haven't done a journey like this in 20 years. When I was 32, I went with a large group of dear friends on a trek in Peru. We did a 5-day trek to Machu Picchu, going through the Salcante Pass, and it was extraordinary. It took me to the limits of my endurance. It taught me that I can do anything for 15 more minutes. It showed me who I am in relationship, and what I want in relationship. And it was following that journey that I made some radical changes in my life. I moved to Southern California and I opened the possibilities of everything that this chapter held in store for me that I could never have imagined 20 years ago. So if you're the kind of person who says, well, I need to wait for permission, I need to look for the time, I need to focus on the training, I need to fix all of my health issues before I can welcome in the idea of an adventure. As I've already said, it doesn't have to be travel to another continent or another country. It doesn't have to be an extended time away from work. However, I do hope that you're starting to see the potential, whether it's a part of a day, whether it's an extended weekend, or whether it can be a vacation, to immerse yourself in an experience and to invite these gifts. You can make a pilgrimage, if you will, wherever you are, as soon as you bring your intention and attention to what you would like to call forward out of your own journey. What I'm looking forward to experiencing is stepping away from the rushing and simply being present to where we are, to what our experience is, to reading the information that my senses are bringing to me, to recognizing how little I truly need to get by when I'm relegated to what I can easily carry and navigate through some little inner stops along that itinerary. Being open to letting each day unfold. Sometimes it can be very hard to move away from expectations and trust that the right thing is going to happen at the right time. I could have spent another 3 weeks on making reservations for those buffer days on the front and back side of our pilgrimage, and I have some framework pieces in place, some things that I know that I want to do. And in this travel experience, which is a bit of a departure for me, I am leaving space in between those to let those journeys unfold and reveal themselves to me. Rather than panicking because I've only got 3 days in Porto and 3 days in Lisbon, and what beautiful, old, powerful cities these are to visit, I'm trying to remain open and let that spirit of being a pilgrim continue into beyond and permeating the perimeters of our walk. So, not only when the assignment is be here now and watch the road unfold in front of you, but to take that spirit of being a pilgrim beyond the boundaries of our structured walk. One thing that I love to discover when I travel is how I can redefine what is enough. This is another topic that I have visited in one of my solo conversations with you. It came up after my husband and I moved from the home that we absolutely loved last year. We had both been there for a very long time and moved into a very small, very simple living situation for a couple of months before we found our new long-term home. When we re-examine what is enough, we give ourselves permission to unsubscribe from the things that society tells us are essential and reconnect with our own values. This is something that I love to explore. And if you've heard me talk about my Be on Purpose Now workshop, where we bring into alignment our inherent strengths, our desired emotions, and our core aligned values. When we cut through the chaos and the external messages and we realign ourselves with what truly matters to us, then you might be shocked to find out what is actually enough versus what you strive for, what you find yourself pushing for and reaching for as a course of daily life. That's one lesson that I took away from traveling in Peru that has always been with me ever since then, is to see the simple joy of the people that I saw as we were walking along those trails. Of course, industry comes up along any tourist kind of pathway, and there are benefits and there are detriments in any of these situations. However, to see families able to be present, to be together, the smiles I saw on faces of children of all ages, the openness that I saw in adults who made comforts available to us along the trails was really beautiful and really affirming at a time when I was trying to work my way up through the ladder, find the next best thing, wondering desperately what that next chapter would hold and should look like, for me to step out and to see people truly flourishing with so much less than what we think we require here in the US was a gift. Exactly the right time, exactly the right message that I needed to receive. And so I hope in some ways, in some fashions, again, even if you can't take an extended journey, that you will look for these opportunities to connect with people in a different economic situation than you, a different geographical location than you, a different culture than you, to re-examine, to view with fresh eyes how little we truly need in order to enjoy happiness, especially when we cut a lot of that chaos out of the way. Many cultures cultivate joy through connection, through rhythm, through music and dance. One of my favorite parts of exploring in new cultures, through simplicity, and as I've been saying, through presence. Here in the US, we normalize overwork and busyness, identifying with our level of stress and the achievements that we are chasing. And that is imprinted upon our next generations, for good or for bad. Either they emulate it and they believe that is what they are set out to aspire to, or in that relationship, they feel disconnected or not as important as these trappings might be to their parents, to the people in their lives, and they choose to find a new route for themselves. What if instead we took the opportunity to be more present, more authentic, and enjoy the simple pleasures with our younger generations rather than giving them the same kind of chronic stress patterns to heal from that we are starting to awaken to in ourselves? We here in the US, particularly, especially in cities and more urban areas, we live with extraordinary conveniences. If the hot water takes a long time to show up in the sink, we get frustrated. Whereas when you're traveling, if you get any hot water in your shower, that might be cause for celebration. You just never know what kind of amenities are going to be available. When we're outside of our daily life, that becomes an adventure. But when we are inside the patterns of our regular lives, those little inconveniences can really become big triggers. Is that something that you notice in yourself too? But even in our lives full of conveniences, we find ourselves feeling empty, feeling unfulfilled. And so, how can we turn that around? How can we find more value, more presence, more benefit in these fulfilling opportunities? And I believe those come from finding ways to have new perspective. If through travel you give yourself permission to cultivate a new perspective, then when you come back home, I assure you it's going to be easier to apply that new perspective to the patterns and habits of your daily life. We do have to make that effort, though. We do have to work not to fall right back into those patterns, especially if we're expected to show up to work soon after we return back home. What I want you to take away from this is my true belief that happiness is not always found in more. That by doing less, by expecting less, by being open to whatever might be and withholding judgment, just being present in the experience, we can find more pleasure, more contentment, these moments of awe and wonder that I was already talking about in that space. So rather than pinning your expected feeling of happiness on having more, on having accomplishments and achievements, what if we reframe it and we start to look for the lighter, easier, less demanding kind of expectations of what we consider quote unquote happy, and we find more happiness in the little things. Sometimes happiness is found in simply experiencing less pressure, in having slower mornings rather than racing out of bed with the sound of the alarm clock and not feeling like you get to relax until the end of the day when you finally make it back home again. Being present in nature, sharing meals and conversation, hearing new words from new people in new ways, and opening your eyes to new experiences. These moments of curiosity, of my friends all and wonder, they reduce stress and they expand your perspective. So I invite you to look to these gifts that you can call forward. Another benefit that I find in travel is simply breaking through stereotypes and generalities. When we connect, when we are in the moment, when we are listening very intently, because an accent can be hard to decipher, but we're trying to communicate and exchange messages, we break through stereotypes. We really see into the heart of people. We recognize that so many more people are kind and generous than are the alternative. No matter what your news media might be showing you, there's a lot more kindness in the world than there is cruelty. However, not to say we shouldn't be aware of it, not to say we shouldn't take a stand and be in action against cruelty where it occurs. However, don't let the news be your only source of information for the people that we are walking this planet with. When you're traveling, your eyes open up and you see families out together, parents caring for children, elders gathered together, talking, sharing stories, savoring the sunlight, a cup of coffee together, people laughing, old friends, new connections, even people who might be struggling, also finding space and opportunities for joy. In all of these spaces, rather than expectations, when we look for that experience of enough-ness, there's so much more room. And there's such a beautiful invitation to bring that home with you after a journey, no matter how long it is. I think it's important in these experiences to see ultimately that humans everywhere want so many of the same things. We want safety for ourselves and our children. We want meaning and love in our life. And we thrive when we feel like we belong in community. When we recognize that ideology can be out here on the fringe, it doesn't have to be the defining face of the person that we're connecting with. We can see beyond the wrappings and find that core of humanity that is within all of us. Whatever beliefs people hold, the more we connect person to person, the more then when those conversations come up along the lines of ideology, we can actually hear each other. And we haven't already shut each other down based on what we believe about what they believe. All right. I'm not saying don't stand up for what you believe is right. I stand up for kindness and peace and inclusion. And I'm still going to treat my fellow humans like humans, even if their ideology is not aligned with mine yet. I think there's always room for opportunity there. When you're traveling and you run into language barriers, you recognize that kindness is a language all on its own that we all can tune into. And the beauty that we can find in these moments and sharing in that discovery really transcends language barriers. In an age where so many of us feel isolated and alone, where connecting through a screen seems to be the core of our experience, we can really tune back into empathy and compassion when we're out of our homes, when we're out of our offices, we're out from behind our desk, and we are out in the world having shared experiences. When we get out of our pattern, we break out of the routine in which you may be experiencing chronic stress, then you can open up your horizons. You can perceive so much more because you have broken that pattern. You have an expanded perspective, room for that curiosity. I think you're going to come back with some brilliant ideas to apply to your work after some time away. And it also has been demonstrated in some research. Reducing the rigidity that we have when we meet the world that comes with those expectations, and being more open to the emotions you're feeling and the emotions you're perceiving in others. Being open to the unexpected, being okay with change, rolling with what happens. If you miss a train, there will be another train. If the albergue is full and you have to move on to another place to stay, weather changes, unexpected conversations, surprising discoveries, along with those experiences that start off feeling rocky or difficult. Often the flip side of that is where you find the gift. So whether or not travel comes according to your plan, and even I think more so when it does not follow your plan, those detours become your best stories, opportunities for the most thrilling connections. Resilience comes from moving through those stressful times. So even if at the moment it's hard to find something to laugh about, trust that in the end, you're going to make it through this with more than just a story, with your own confidence fulfilled at meeting the unexpected and thriving. And I think that the most brilliant and shining moments of joy really do come from those unscripted, unplanned moments and experiences. So let yourself be open to the best that could be coming to you. I hope that this conversation has given you some ideas. It's not summer yet, as spring is winding down, and there's still time to look for opportunities as the days are longer here in the Northern Hemisphere. As I would venture, if you have paid time off, you might have a little bit extra that needs to be used up. I hope that you will be inspired to look for opportunities. As I said, it could be a half day getaway, an extended weekend. It could be a true vacation, as we call it. And I hope that given that opportunity, you will find the rewards of spontaneity and creativity of receptivity and of trust being fulfilled, and a spirit of playfulness that you might have lost over these last few months. So consider, before life storms back in, before you get whisked back away to whatever you were listening to or participating in before this conversation with me today, consider where you're ready for a fresh perspective. Is there a journey that you have been dreaming of but putting off? And what benefits of travel could be waiting for you? What benefits could you receive from travel? And how, if travel isn't necessarily part of your short-term plan, could you bring some of those benefits into your regular life? Because it doesn't have to be a full departure. It doesn't have to be a transatlantic flight. It doesn't have to be working with a tour agency. But you can be a traveler in your own land. You can explore locally, take a different route. You can make a choice to unplug. Go ahead and put that vacation response on your email, even if it's merely a choice not to check it for 36 hours. I hope that you will say yes to a new experience, and I hope that your curiosity will be sparked. Ultimately, the world is much bigger, kinder, and more connected than fear would lead us to believe. And sometimes the greatest gift of travel is remembering who we are when we can move past the stress, the schedules, and the striving. So I hope that in this next season, you'll give yourself the gift of space, that invitation for awe and wonder, and I hope you'll come back and tell me about it. Post a comment if you're catching this episode on Spotify or YouTube or over on happifiedlife.com, where you can comment specifically on this episode. I'd love to hear what's coming up for you, if I've inspired that travel bug inside of you, or what your greatest takeaways were from your last little getaway, no matter how long it was. Thank you for making time to join me. I look forward to joining you when I am back in the States next month. And until then, I'm wishing you love, curiosity, and a great conversation with a new friend. Until then, take good care of yourself. Thanks for listening. You'll find all the resources we discussed today online at happifiedlife.com, along with links to subscribe to Happified on your favorite player and a handy search tool so you can search all of our previous episodes. Help us grow by leaving a quick review and share this episode with a friend. Until next time, keep on shining.